Welcome to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. From flooded crawl spaces to packed conference rooms, 2025 was a wild ride for the restoration industry. And Restoration Pros Unplugged was there for every breakthrough. You tuned in for stories that hit home, strategies that shifted mindsets, and real conversations that raised the bar. So, as the year winds down, we're rewinding the moments that moved us, the episodes that challenged us, and the voices that helped shape restoration's future. This is Restoration Pros Rewind 2025. Let's take it from the top. We're starting today's show with a powerful moment from our 5th most listened to audio episode of the year. Clinton James sat down with Leah Hanlon from One Plumber to break down the real blueprint to winning commercial restoration contracts in 2025 and beyond, and restoration professionals honestly couldn't ask for more.
You can't just go out there and secure a bunch of commercial opportunities, right? The challenge is business-to-business sales is hard, right? You're going to run into, how do you stay relevant, right? How do you stay top of mind? Even when you have a good conversation with one of these property managers, how do you make sure that you are in their Rolodex, or the first time they need your service, that you're the company that they call, right? This is something you're looking for, a differentiator, right? Something that separates you from all of the other restoration companies out there that are doing the exact same thing over and over again. And as you mentioned, people traditionally do business with people they know, like, and trust, right? So you've got to hire and train someone that those property managers or other will be comfortable and want to do some business with, right? You found that differentiator through One Plumber, but there's a lot of things that you were doing before the One Plumber that allowed you to be successful, right? Can you talk a little about some of those other differentiators that you did in the past before you guys started doing the One Plumber?
Of course. Some of it's me and some of it's the company, the business, right? I think Icon did a really great job of setting themselves apart from other restoration companies in the market because, we had a response time of 59 minutes or less. That's an impressive response time. And not to mention, we never sent a spotter in to scope the job or estimate it first. We sent we dispatched with a crew with equipment ready to work. So we were on site working within an hour. Our commercial customer base loved that because that's all they care about is, response time. Not all they care about, but a really big piece of it. And then also, I think the professionalism and the brand and the way that you present yourself and your team does is huge, because if you're calling on commercial property management, you might be in Class A buildings with doctors and lawyers and, just high-end business owners. So the tenants in those buildings have high expectations. Therefore, the property management company does too. So, they want a company that comes in a clean, well put together uniform, professional, no ma'am, yes sir, not smoking cigarettes on the porch and flicking their butts on the sidewalk, right?
Right.
So there are definitely some differentiators that you should do as a company to set yourself apart. But then as a BDR, you need to do the same thing.
Wow, great insights, Leah. Next up, a top watched moment from our top 4th podcast episode. Let's go.
How much additional value do you think your consulting clients get because they're getting coaching from someone who has literally experienced every possible problem that they're going to experience because everybody starts right at different stages, right? You onboard a restoration company and the guy might have just got his IICRC certification 2 months ago, bought 2 vehicles, hired a project manager, and now it's like, I don't know what to do. But you also might work with a restoration company that's been doing this for a decade. They do $5-10 million a year in business, and they might have different problems. But your coaches, they've seen it all.
And what they have, and what's interesting is, so any one business owner, and I don't care if they've owned a $50 million restoration company, and I found this to be true. Just because somebody did that does not mean they know everything about the business. In fact, it's unlikely, especially if they come to that scale. It's been years since they've been working directly with their field teams, potentially. Yeah. So I think where the benefit is, because our consultants all come from different backgrounds. Some built a 10, 15, $20 million company. Others sold their business at $6 million, got a nice multiple, and they were able to cash out, pull their chips off the table, and now they're consultants. But it kind of doesn't matter in a way how big of a business they built, because one of the other really key meaty, like critical things that our consultants have at their as part of their tool chest is the wisdom of the crowd.
Okay.
So over the last 4.5, 5 years that Floodlight's been in existence, as I mentioned, we've worked with dozens and dozens and dozens of restorers all across the country, from zero startups like the Chuck in a Truck you're talking about that just got their first trailer full of equipment, to the 50, 60, $70 million restoration companies with multiple locations with 100+ staff. And you start to develop some themes and patterns as a consultant, seeing what types of behaviors lead to positive outcomes and what types of recurring behaviors we see in businesses that lead to negative outcomes. And it's not always obvious when you're a single business owner what those things are, but when you start to have visibility across many restoration companies, like every single week, we have a consulting meeting with our consultants. Wayne is our consultant manager. He's an incredible leadership coach and does an incredible job with them. But part of what Wayne does is tries to pull out of the consultants, what are you working on? What are you seeing? For the benefit of all the other consultants in the room, so we can start to take some of those learning experiences and observations and apply them with all of our other, clients. And I think that's perhaps the greatest value of hiring a consultant in general is, and I don't know, I think some companies to a different degree are able to do that or focused on doing that. But we see that as a big part of the value is taking that wisdom of the crowd and always augmenting our own personal experience as consultants with what we're hearing and seeing right now from all of our clients across the country. So I think in some ways that's even more powerful than the fact that they've owned. But you can't really have one without the other, It's like they know part of the wisdom of the crowd is it's their owner experience that tells them if a piece of information is relevant or valuable to even know to bring it to one of their other clients,
So if I work with Floodlight and I own a successful restoration business, I'm not just getting the skill set and the experience of my one-on-one coach. I'm getting the experience of a pool of coaches that literally spend time every single week bouncing problems, suggestions, real-life scenarios at each other to make sure that all of your consultant clients are getting the best possible solution, the best possible roadmap to success.
Huge shout out to Chris from Floodlight Consulting Group. He explained the importance of having a restoration business coach or consultant on board and how they do this expertly at Floodlight. Up next, host Clinton James and co-host Bobby Thomas delve into the intricacies of marketing within the restoration industry. Number 3 for 2025.
Does most of your mold work come from TPAs as well?
So we get mold in a couple of different ways.
Okay.
Of course, we do get mold with TPAs, but we're also listed, on the ICRC website as a certified mold remediator.
Okay.
Another thing that we do, and this kind of works with water too, is, since we're talking about marketing channels, another thing that we've done in the past was use Thumbtack.
Really?
TripAdvisor, those type of platforms. And again, some of them are tire kickers and some of them are serious and ready to move forward. I think with mold, you hit the nail on the head. It's real important to educate your customer so that they see you as as a force in what you're doing, so that they'll call you when they do have a problem with mold. Because most of the time people are calling in and asking, do you do mold? Can you come out and give an estimate? When you give the estimate, they're ready to faint because because the price point. But the thing is like you said, the people that are really ready to do mold services, I think if you present yourself as an authority in the industry and educate the customers about what you do, as far as the safety concerns with mold, I think people will pay more attention to that versus an ad that's running on Facebook or whatever the case is. Because again, like you said, there are a ton of tire kickers out there, and we're in business to make money, and nobody really wants to deal with that to a certain. I mean, of course, there's a certain level of attrition you have to deal with,
Sure.
but as the business owner, you want to kind of weed out the junk as much as you can.
Well, you've been doing this for years. So I imagine at this point you have a database of clients that you've provided any number of services to, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's carpet cleaning, air duct cleaning, water restoration, fire, mold remediation. Do you have an ongoing newsletter that you're sending out to clients to educate them and then potentially promote some of the other services that you're offering?
You know what? We actually did have a newsletter that went out for a period of time. What we did, we actually stopped it because we got so heavy in water and firework on the TPA side. We kind of dialed back home services a little bit, but it's going to be coming back here pretty soon.
Man, I think that's a great opportunity because once you get a client and you provide great service to them, it doesn't matter what service you offer, you want to continue to stay in front of that client on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Right? Whether it's a homeowner or business owner or even one of your referral partners, you want to continue to put out that educational content. Definitely do it on social media. We're going to talk about that in future episodes, best ways for restoration companies to utilize social media. But I think content marketing, social media engagement, email newsletters, those are a great way for you to promote, educate, and promote mold remediation services.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Restoration professionals were almost there. This episode was watched, listened, and appreciated in 2025, which is why it makes it to our list of top 5 this year. But the impact it created and the amount of times it resonated with our listeners wins it the second spot in the list pretty comfortably. Let's jump in.
The reason I met James was first at the hotel, but second on the vendor showroom floor because he had one of the biggest, most beautiful service vehicles I have ever seen in the restoration space. He had crowds all around him. We shot a little video content there, and I thought, man, service vehicles are absolutely imperative to the success of scaling up a restoration company. So I wanted to give James an opportunity to come on here and talk a little bit about what Gorilla Truck Box can provide for restoration companies. But before we do that, why don't you tell us, James, what inspired you to create Gorilla Truck Box? What was the specific issue? Because every good product comes with a problem, right? So what did you identify as the big problem in the restoration field that pushed you into thinking that we needed something better?
And I learned it through the school of hard knocks, as most of us do, if we get into the cleaning and restoration business. My dad had started a business back in 1970, real early 70s, and I kind of grew up around it. And of course, we got into restoration and other things, but never liked the vehicles that we had to work at. They were all disorganized, so organization was my biggest thing. I'm big on organization because I think that's really the key to productivity. It's just how well organized you are as a company and how your equipment is organized and so forth. So I didn't like having to crawl in and out of the vans constantly. They were back in that day when we were doing it. It was, a standard Chevy van, a standard Ford van. And so when you get into restoration with your reel in the back and all a 3-tier shelf on the side and all that, there's no room for drying equipment. So it became a real problem trying to keep things organized, and you were constantly going back and forth to the shop to get stuff that you didn't have on your truck when you get on the job. So there's a lot of problems there.
I like that you mentioned that because when I drive around, I live in Northern California. I'm originally from Texas, but when I drive around and I see service vehicles for restoration companies, because God knows there's plenty of them in my neck of the woods, I see everything from vans to trucks with their back covered there. I see Sprinter vans there. So there's really doesn't seem to be a lot of uniformity when it comes to service vehicles in our industry. But when I talk to people that own restoration companies, everybody has the same complaints about service vehicles nowadays, right?
All right, Restoration Pros, it's time. This is the top episode of the year, the one everyone replayed, shared, and couldn't stop talking about. Here's the best moment from our #1 most loved episode.
I'm glad you brought up the whole state option, Ryan, because I've seen restoration companies go in there and select an entire state as their service area. I'm telling you right now, that's not going to be effective, okay? Because Even though Google doesn't say it, because Google doesn't give us any insight as to what their algorithm looks like or what their ranking factors are. But we have seen it time and time again that proximity plays a role in when you have that visibility, right? So if your service address is in this city and you want to get jobs 100 miles away, but it's still part of your state, it's very unlikely because Google is going to look at your address. It's going to look at the address of that homeowner or that business owner and see that, hey, there's other restoration companies that have a great reputation that are also on the platform that are probably a better fit to work with that property owner there. So proximity is a ranking factor. I always suggest, hey, let's help you dominate your backyard first. And then once we start dominating your backyard, then we have a couple of other strategies that we could use to help you get that visibility in other parts of your service area. Finally, reviews. Reviews matter, don't they, Ryan?
Extremely.
Okay. So it's not just the volume, like the total number of reviews that a company has. It's also the average star rating, and it's also the frequency in which you're getting new reviews, right? So I've seen clients that have 500 reviews that are being outranked by a newer company because that newer company every day or every week they're getting multiple reviews. But that company that got 300, 400, 500 reviews, they decided to rest on their laurels, and it's been 6 months since that company's received a review there, right? So that's why we really insist with our clients that we put an effective system in place to make it easier for every time they wrap up a job, whether it's a big job or a small job. We want to have a system in place where we proactively go out and reach out to that homeowner and encourage them to write a 5-star review on Google because those reviews matter. And what we're seeing more and more is that weight of reviews, like in terms of ranking factors, right? The weight of your online reputation is having more and more impact on how many of these leads you're able to get through Google Guarantee. Is that what you guys are seeing on your end, Ryan?
Absolutely. Now, actually, one of the updates is you actually have to have a Google business profile verified and have reviews to even have an LSA account in the first.
Got to have at least 3, right?
Yeah. So, yes, that is how important it is that, and even to get started, you have to have some. So you can only imagine the weight it plays overall.
Reputation definitely is playing a big role.
That's a wrap on another powerful year of growth, grit, and game-changing conversations. To every guest who shared their story, to every listener who tuned in, and to every restoration pro building something bigger, thank you for being part of the Restoration Pros Unplugged journey. From all of us at Water Restoration Marketing, we're wishing you a very Merry Christmas, a joyful holiday season, and a massive breakthrough-filled new year. We'll see you in 2026. But until then, keep leading, keep leveling up, and keep restoring what matters.